COVID, baby. Don't you love COVID? People get really upset when I tell them they're gonna have to wear a mask for another year when they go places, even with the vaccine. I think people will be happy though. It's not nearly as bad wearing a mask, I think, when it's like, not as bad throughout the entire country. And like a year from now, or like this summer even, when cases are down to like 20,000 a day or 10,000 a day, it's not going to be nearly as bad. Hey, what's up, Sarah? Yeah, I have a couple N95s, but they expire pretty quickly when you use them. I mean, I think I have real ones. I got them from a place online. It's like a barbershop distributor because barbershops obviously need those a lot for obvious reasons. I gotta go to the barber too, but I probably won't go for a little bit. You have to wear surgical ones at school. Yeah, I mean, logically, just thinking about it, they have to stop something. No, I don't think anyone's masking is a. Do you mean fitted as in like it molds to your face? Yeah, like I breathe through my mask. Like it's being filtered through, if that's what you mean. Yeah, just shaving your head. That could be a viable option. It's a lot cheaper than going to the barber. Yeah, that's how mine were. I was mainly wearing the ones that make it look good though. Like I had Adidas masks, and I know those don't do much. I mean, they don't do anything coming in, but they do some stuff coming out. If I had COVID, but like me having COVID is not even the issue. Who cares if I get it? The issue is if I give it to somebody else who can't get it. I mean, I'm a runner, so any type of lung damage wouldn't be good for obvious reasons. I don't want to be having issues in the middle of a 7 mile run where I can't breathe or something. There's been some complications with athletes who don't know they have it, but they do strenuous exercise. And then they realize they have it like in the middle of exercising and are like, "Oh no, what do I do now?" Or there's a heart condition they get as well. I forget what it's called. NCAA doctors have it or talk about it. Sarah and Erica. That rhymes. I don't like it. I mean, I've been inside the past like 4 months doing nothing, talking to nobody. All my friends are at school. In the summer, I was doing stuff. I'm probably going to go on another like 40, 50 mile bike ride this weekend. Republican Twitter's freaking out because, yeah, the vaccine being mandatory, that's not going to happen in America. I mean, the thing that might make it mandatory, though, there's a difference between, forcing people to get it and not letting people do things if they don't get it. So, like, local governments can easily say, like, if your kid doesn't get the vaccine, you can't send your kid to public school. Or, for example, Ticketmaster right now is saying, um, if you don't get a vaccine or prove that you're tested for COVID, like prove you don't have it, then you can't buy tickets from them and go to see concerts. You work out 3 hours a day? What? What's that mean? You just wake up and do sit-ups for 3 hours? I eat a lot of junk food. I don't know though, because if Trump says the vaccine is good, won't they trust it and use the vaccine before going to school and stuff? Or if when Trump's out of office, oh boy, he probably will say the vaccine is fake. Right now he's in office and is saying that he's like developing it, so he's saying it's gonna work, but out of office, maybe he'll say the vaccine isn't good now because the Democrats are overseeing the process. 1 hour of yoga, 2 hours on a stationary bike. Yeah, I mean, I prefer the real bike at this point. Maybe when I'm in the winter, I would want a stationary bike. Hopium. I love how, I love how hopium is a common term now. I was gonna look at this Rising video, this PragerU video, and this Kim Iverson video. This is the one about like what's a populist progressive versus like I don't know, I guess a Democrat progressive. It's cold. Where is it cold at? It's 20 degrees outside right now. Real chilly. Very chilly. It doesn't feel very good to breathe in that freaking cold air when you're riding a bike too. Because when you ride a bike, I go like 25 to 30 miles per hour, and the cold air goes directly in your mouth. I gotta wear a mask or something. Sort of like a motorcycle, just not as fast. And I have to breathe really heavy while doing it because I'm exercising. What's that noise? I hear a knocking noise. Is someone working on something? I hear like a hammer outside. Maybe someone's breaking in. That's a total possibility, right? Oh, what's up? DM Tram on Twitch. Are you on YouTube too? I have to open up Twitch chat to see you. So that's why I didn't see your messages. Biden should force people's state of emergency and martial's law. What's hopium? Hopium is when people are coping over something, basically, and there's a little bit of hope in that situation. So, like, copium is the drug you take when you're trying to cope with something, and hopium is like an injection of hope. So, like, on election night, on the original night when it looked like Trump was ahead, people on the left had a lot of copium, so they were coping with the results. But the day after that, when it looked like Biden was going to take Trump over, that's when they had hopium, because they had hope.
I got this email in from JR. Kim, you say you are a progressive, but you often seem to take right-wing talking points and only seem to criticize the Democratic Party. Are we witnessing a Dave Rubin-style grift? Well, JR, thank you so much for your question. I do like to get all of your emails, and I read all of them in my inbox. I can't respond to all of them, but I do read them, and I appreciate this question. I get this question a lot, and I think it's probably time I answer it or clarify some things. First of all, if you don't know what a Dave Rubin style grift is, Dave Rubin is, he has a big show here on YouTube and I think other platforms as well. And I believe he started off with TYT. So he was a progressive with TYT. I should say he's a gay man living in Los Angeles, married, has checked all the boxes of identity politics. And was on the TYT network. And then slowly, I think he started to, he had his own show and he was kind of questioning sort of the stuff that was coming from the left. And he was sitting down with a lot of people who were questioning those narratives. And I actually I don't watch his show as much anymore, but because I don't really have time, but I like Dave Rubin. I did watch his show previously, and I watched the transformation happen for my own self. I watched him go from curious and slowly being convinced by all of his guests.
From poor to rich. Well, not poor, but from medium income to high income. That's what she saw Dave Rubin transition from. So she starts it off with, she gets a question about, like, are you a Dave Rubin style grifter? And the reasoning for that question is because her entire page is only biased against Democrats. She doesn't attack every side equally, which is my biggest criticism of her, of Jimmy Dore, of people like that, of Nico House. They only attack Democrats. They don't attack the right. And you could actually watch a debate with Kim Iverson and Destiny. She looks absolutely terrible the entire time for 2 hours. It was a debate on whether people on the left should vote for Biden or vote third party. She would only defend Donald Trump. She could not criticize Donald Trump once. So check out, if you don't believe me, look at her debate with Destiny. But her entire timeline on here, there's nothing critical of the right whatsoever. Nothing at all. Literally only attacking the left. That's why I call her, and people like her, useful idiots. Because the right uses people like her to get their point across and to attack liberals without giving any power to progressives.
Start doing that. We will not be the greatest nation. We're already on track to be.
I like ads.
Taken by China, and it'll read all of them in my inbox. I can't respond to all of them, but I do read them. And I appreciate this question. I get this question a lot, and I think it's probably time I answer it or clarify some things. First of all, if you don't know what a Dave Rubin style grift is, Dave Rubin is, he has a big show here on YouTube and I think other platforms as well. Sort of the stuff that was coming from the left, and he was sitting down with a lot of people who were questioning those narratives. And I actually I don't watch his show as much anymore, but because I don't really have time, but I like Dave Rubin. I did watch his show previously, and I watched the transformation happen for my own self. I watched him go from curious and slowly being convinced by all of his guests that the left wing of America or liberal America or Democratic Party or whatever, the culture, especially he focuses a lot on the culture, that it was, for him, he felt like just bunk. And I saw him sort of transition and become more and more conservative to the point where he now is I believe, very conservative, maybe libertarian, but certainly identifies.
No, he is not libertarian at all. He's not libertarian. Ben Shapiro's not libertarian. Tim Pool is not libertarian. Libertarian is the word they use to make themselves look better when they're being authoritarian.
With right-wing America than left-wing America, like he used to. So the idea of the grift is that I would go from being this progressive leftist to suddenly becoming actually a right-winger. Some people accuse me of being a Republican in disguise, that I'm just pretending to be a left-wing progressive, and actually I'm going to come out and say, ha ha, I got you all. I'm actually a Republican, and join me.
You don't need to be a Republican to be a useful idiot to help the far right, because all you do is attack Democrats, and you are incapable of attacking people on the right, because Kim Iverson thinks populism is a personality trait. She puts populism above political strategy and above principle, to be honest.
Or something, the dark side. That is not what's happening here.
Just because something is populist doesn't mean it's good.
I think the first thing that has to happen is we would have to determine what is the definition of progressive, because that term.
Yeah, it's like Tulsi, who is involved with Modi or whatever, the fascist party in India. It's interesting.
Changed and shifted. I don't think it was me that changed. I think it was actually the term progressive that changed. So for me, I identify, and I have identified as a progressive, mainly because of Bernie Sanders' 2016 campaign. So I am for Medicare for all. I believe in a universal healthcare sort of system. It doesn't have to be Medicare for all specifically. There's many other ways to go about this.
See, this is what I don't do in my videos, and it's one of the reasons I lost subscribers a couple months ago before I started making a different kind of content. So every single video, she says a problem, and then she simply says what she's saying right now. We need Medicare for all, we need the Green New Deal, we need whatever policies. She is more of a cheerleader for these policies inside of an echo chamber than she is like a critical thinking being inside, the political atmosphere.
Europe proves that every country has its own way.
It's easy just to parrot the same exact talking points every single video. It's hard to really, battle with different facts, different information, and have different debates around the issues, around what's actually happening on the ground. But of course, people like her get really big, people like her get really big Patreons and stuff because people love tuning in here and just hearing exactly what they agree with. So they want to fund it. And look at this. Look at this. This is the key identifier of a grift. In case of deplatforming or censorship, please sign up for my email list here. Interesting.
Want a healthcare system that provides for all of the citizens in this country. I do believe in either extremely low cost or free higher education. Doesn't have to be college, can be trade schools, whatever. But I do believe investing in our youth is one of the most important things that we can do for our future, the health of this nation. We're about to be dumbed down significantly. Asia is outpacing us. They invest in their children's education, and if we don't start doing that, we will not be the greatest nation. We're already on track to be overtaken by China, and it'll be even more definitely so if we don't, make some serious.
Well, yeah, the looks do play into it. Like Lauren Chen. If you look in the comments, I'm sure a bunch of people are saying, "Oh wow, she's so pretty" or whatever. It's not exactly only what she's saying, but there's a lot of people like this though, like Jimmy Dore, Nico House, even Crystal Ball on Rising in a lot of scenarios.
Decisions on that. I believe in ending the wars. We're spending way too much money on the war.
But she was a huge Tulsi supporter. It's something about the Tulsi supporters that they put populism over all else, which is why honestly, I think a lot of these Tulsi progressives would vote for Tucker Carlson over Joe Biden.
Wars, and because of that, we're not able to invest in America, in American people, in American infrastructure, in American entrepreneurship, innovation, technology. So we need to end wars. That is my number one issue because I do believe, I take that. It's actually my number two. My number one issue is getting money out of politics. And I always thought that was the main thing that made a progressive was you want to get money out of politics. So that was kind of the barometer. And then from there, it would be sort of a Medicare for all sort of thing. And the war thing isn't so much with progressives, I found. But for me, that is number two. So for me, it was getting money out of politics. Number two is ending war because I'm about life and death. And that's the ultimate life and death. And then three would be Medicare for all or a system.
So she's talking about what makes a real progressive. Really, if you want to look at it when it comes to every political ideology, the more on the left you are, the more you want to go forward and progress. This is socially and also economically. You want to change systems and make them better. The more on the right you are, you want to keep things the way they are. And also, if you are a fascist, you want to take things back to the way they were. So Make America Great Again is fascistic because you want to go back. You want to go back to the old values, back to the old way of thinking. But if you're a progressive, you want to progress. It's actually pretty straightforward when it comes to the terminology. And when it comes to saying who's a real progressive, literally, if you want things to move forward and advance, you technically are a progressive. Gatekeeping, I don't even know if it even works here.
Equivalent, which is also a life and death issue for me. And then there are other things I agree with, like I said, with education and just a more equitable, fair system in society where the wealth doesn't get siphoned all the way to the top. I don't agree with trickle-down economics because I believe that's exactly what happens. It just trickles. There's kind of this idea that it will flood down to the middle class, and it doesn't. It trickles, and that's not working. So those issues to me, and I'm sure there's others, I'm pro-choice, but there are things that I don't agree with the left on that do make me maybe more of a right-winger or have right-wing talking points. For example, the Second Amendment. I actually am a proponent of the Second Amendment and defender of the Second Amendment. I
don't know anyone that is actively against the Second Amendment. I only know people who are for more gun laws, whether that's a licensing system. All the Democrats that I know that are for assault weapons bans don't even know what guns are. Like they literally are that meme where they're like, they show a picture of a cap gun or like a BB gun, and they say, "Look at this dangerous assault rifle I bought from Walmart," and they think that meme is correct. Like these people don't know anything about guns. I think this is a straw man right now, and I
Agree.
don't know.
I think we
I
should have
don't.
some, sensible regulations. But
That's
but
what most
but
people
I do.
say.
I'm much more to the right than most of my counterparts that call themselves progressives when it comes to the Second Amendment.
I think that's the liberal wine mom taking over the Democratic Party, why that's such a big issue, and it's really easy to politicize, and it's easy not to act on. Like, with all of the mass shootings that happened over the Obama administration, what actually happened with gun legislation?
Free speech, that's a big one. I don't know why that's suddenly now a right-wing issue, but it is, and I
If
am.
you're spreading direct disinformation about elections, I think Twitter. I mean, we know private corporations have the right to dictate what's on their platforms. That's why Parler is popping up now. Because if you want to spread conspiracy and disinformation, you can go to Parler. But when it comes to like censorship, I want to see what she says.
Right there with them for it. I'm all about free speech. I don't think ideas should be censored, no matter how abhorrent you think those ideas are.
I
And I know
disagree.
that's not
No, I disagree. Nope. Like if you're gonna like, it's like if you platform somebody who has crazy ideas like Alex Jones, like Joe Rogan does, and you don't effectively fire back at him, you are doing a great disservice to society in general and to the, debate on ideas in general. That's not good to have people spouting off whatever they want to millions of people. I do not think that's a good thing. When it comes to should they be allowed to do that, you really have to do it by case basis. I do agree there are limits to this, like when Kyle Kalinske says, if you said the Iraq War, if you said they did not have WMDs, then you would have been restricted by today's rules. I'd have to think about that more and look into today's examples more, but I don't know if there's any direct examples of something like that happening today to give that idea credence.
popular with a lot of people on the left. Look, so, I've got a mixed bag of ideas, but again, my main one was and is getting money out of politics. And I thought that was the term, that's what progressive meant. But at the end of the day, guys, what I noticed during this election cycle in particular was that the term progressive has changed. The people who call themselves progressives fiercely, what happened was, because there is sort of this cancel culture that has invaded the left. And I feel like what happened
Cancel
was
culture is not a real
if
issue.
progressive,
You're too online
you
if
can
you
only
think
call
that's
yourself
a
a progressive
thing.
if now it feels like unless you have to agree with everything 100% on the left, and you really ultimately at the end of the day are a Democrat, that you cannot like anything that's going on in the right wing. The GOP is corrupt and evil and immoral, and if you even
They are?
act like you like anybody on that side, you're
Is
just
she
not.
saying they aren't? Is she giving herself a free pass to like those ideas? Because like I said, in that debate with Destiny, she refused to criticize Trump even once.
On our team. That's what it has become, and I absolutely do not agree with that. I completely reject that. I do not play team sports. Politics are
And
not
who's saying that if you aren't a Democrat, you're not a progressive? I've never seen anybody say that. I've actually never seen that in my life.
an identity. They're not a religion. They are not something you're born into. And every election cycle, you actually should take a step back and reassess where you stand on the issues and what the parties stand for. It shouldn't be, I'm a lifelong Democrat. That's actually not a good thing. Or to be a lifelong Republican, that shouldn't be a good thing. That's like I'm a lifelong Dodgers fan, or I'm a lifelong whatever. I mean, it's crazy. We shouldn't be that. You should be independent in thought every election cycle. Every time you go to vote, you should be researching the issues and determining for yourself as an independent what you agree with. But
This doesn't have anything to do with what is considered to be progressive.
instead, we've reeled
she's
into
saying
this
right
team
now.
sport mentality, which is so unhealthy for our country. And it is, you're either on one side or the other. And if you're on this side, you can't like anything on that side. And if you do, then you're not one of us. And that's what it's become. And I found that the progressives, especially in this election cycle, we first saw it with the controversy over Tulsi Gabbard. There were many of us who were progressives, who called ourselves progressives, who really liked Tulsi Gabbard. She's my number one candidate. I hope she runs again in 2024. Probably won't be running as a, if she were to run again, I don't know. I can't, I don't know. But I would think if I were, running her campaign, it probably wouldn't be with the Democratic Party. I can't imagine how she could stay with that party, with how they treated her. But that's her choice and her thing.
Yeah,
so
run
we'll see.
third party,
But
Tulsi. You got it.
many of us who supported Tulsi Gabbard got demonized by other progressives and kind of cut out. And then there was kind of this divide. And then I've seen increasingly the same divide happen with Joe Biden. Once he got the nomination, then there was
Sorry, if you support fascism, then I don't think you're a real candidate in any left party. My bad, if that's an issue. Like, there isn't, it's not simply just populism for the reason that Tulsi appealed to Trump supporters and how she's so down with fascists in India.
Sort of, look, you must support Joe Biden. This is what always happens every election. It's an existential crisis. This is the most important election of our lifetime.
This doesn't happen every election. Like, she's literally just like hitting a straw man over and over again. Like, she's just beating up that straw man.
And you have to support our guy, because if you don't, you're immoral. And therefore, you're absolutely not one of us.
I do agree they do that every election, but every election is not equal in the propensity of those claims.
And I think we saw that with progressives right now. We're seeing this shift to vote blue no matter who. And
no, it was literally just for the presidency. Literally just for that, because voting for president is literally the smallest part of activism. Who gives a shit? Like, if we don't like Joe Biden, we literally just need Joe Biden to keep this current system in place and keep it from fracturing. So our activism that actually matters, between the 4 years, the off years, it doesn't matter during presidential elections. Things like in politics are often already set by the time we get to a general election for president. I would say, like for 2024, 2022 matters a lot more when it comes to progressivism and the framework for actual progress into the future. But every 4 years, it becomes this big issue like, oh boy, the lesser of two evils. I don't care. I am voting the lesser of two evils because I know this isn't what matters. President doesn't matter. If Bernie Sanders gets elected president, great. But he can't do shit without the entire system changing from the bottom up. Like, you think Bernie Sanders would have been president and wouldn't, have just gotten stonewalled with every single proposal? Like, look back at Jimmy Carter's presidency. He ran as a populist. He didn't work with the Washington insiders, and his popularity dipped because he couldn't get anything done. Like, this progressive movement isn't simply the presidency. It's not this emotional game we play, fighting this imaginary battle with all these straw men she's proposing.
Don't fall into that camp. I think Joe Biden is a dangerous candidate for a million different reasons. And because I have that thought, because I believe he is worse than Donald Trump, actually, for many reasons, I am now cut out of the progressive camp.
Please, if you don't believe me, watch her debate with Destiny. Please just watch that, because she thinks Trump is better on many, many, many issues.
Demonized. I've got, one progressive channel. I know he's been publicly calling me a racist. It's kind of ironic. The guy that's all about identity politics, right? And he's fallen into that camp. He's a white male, and he's calling me, the Asian female, racist. And he holds on to the identity politics.
We do have to remember that all of her evaluations are based off of online politics as well, and probably Twitter. My evaluations are based off of talking to real people. Like, once I got on Twitter and saw how lefty Twitter operates, I'm like, holy crap, I cannot talk too much on here, because this is making my ideas not viable for the real world. The way people talk on Twitter, they have no idea. Like, if you use liberal as an insult, you're on Twitter way too much.
I mean, it's just insane to me. And I think there is an insanity that has seeped into the left, mainly just out of visceral hate for Donald Trump. And I'm hoping they kind of come back down to normal now that Donald Trump is not going to be in office. And, maybe they'll calm down and the insanity will calm down. I don't know. But look,
it was a pain for you to vote this year.
I don't think it's healthy to be on one side or the other. I will say also that I do feel the progressive movement has changed, and I definitely do not agree with a lot of the ththings that
What is the progressive movement? I don't like criticizing movements. Like, Black Lives Matter is terrible. Why are they terrible? Because, there's a subsection of Black Lives Matter. There's people saying Black Lives Matter, burning down buildings. Well, that doesn't talk about the entire movement and what the movement means. I don't like looking at things like this.
Of the progressives are saying these days. I think a lot of that stuff is insane and radical, and I am not for it. Many of you know I have never been.
Yeah, I've only seen Alex Jones types getting canceled, or like actual neo-Nazis getting canceled. Usually like Ben Shapiro, Crowder. Crowder's terrible. If he doesn't get censored off of platforms, I'm not really worried about it. 5 million subscribers, far bigger than, I think the biggest left channels are like ContraPoints, far bigger than them.
Getting rid of the Electoral College. I think we could get rid of the electors, the actual people who could go and change their mind on behalf of America. I think that's kind of that needs to go. We can make reform to the Electoral College, but I don't think we need to abolish it. Now some leftists are calling for abolishing the Supreme Court, abolishing the Constitution. I heard that one.
Okay. She's taking abolishing the Constitution as a real argument. I don't know how much I can take her seriously.
This
I
whole
don't
narrative of
know.
it's socialist versus communist. If you're, capitalist. If you're a capitalist, then you're not one of us. You have to be a socialist in order to be a progressive. Then I'm not progressive in
I
that case.
agree. I actually agree with that. You shouldn't have to be a socialist to be progressive. Like, I'm not a socialist. I don't give a shit about socialism, capitalism, or whatever. I care about policy. I care about progress. I don't care about your stupid identification. I mean, it's great if you think, like, being a socialist is super important. Like, it might be for you, but when it comes to how, like, people operate in the political system, I really don't care what you are. I care about what you're doing in that system. I don't care if you're a progressive. I don't care what you think you are, but
Case, guys, because I believe in a healthy mixed economy. I want the
I'm
Scandinavian
not saying we need a new constitution, but can you point to me even minor subsection of any party that says they want to abolish the Constitution? Like, I've never heard that argument brought up in a any serious setting, like from any by more than a couple people at once.
model. I've always said that, and I'm sticking with it. I like innovation. I like technology. I like innovation and entrepreneurship, and I don't think things should be run by committee. There's just a lot of stuff that has become really, really radical. The defund the police movement. Do I believe that we spend, like the military, way too much money on police? Probably, and we probably could scale that back and invest in people, put that money back towards the people in order to build up communities so we don't need so many police officers. But that doesn't mean I just want to get rid of police officers. Some of these
Defund the police doesn't mean getting rid of any police officers. Does she understand anything she's speaking out against? I don't know if she actually does.
ideas have become crazy to me, and I just can't get on board with it. So if that means I'm not a progressive and I'm grifting away, then I guess that's what that means. But I hate to be cliche because this is something Dave Rubin says. It's like, I didn't leave the left left me. I feel that way. I didn't leave you. You left me and went crazy. Went crazy. So now I do find myself agreeing with a lot of things that have been taken up by right-wing America.
What do you agree with?
Free speech, the advocating for
That
free
isn't-
speech and stopping the censoring from big tech or from anybody. I agree with that. We
The
are a
big
country.
tech censorship I'm seeing is literally just about direct disinformation that is easily disprovable. If someone can show me censorship on a wide scale or any scale of something that doesn't deserve it, please let me know what it is.
Of ideas. In order to be a healthy, free society, we must be a society that allows the exchange
And
of
by doesn't deserve it, I mean a situation in which the government should step in to protect someone's speaking rights, because corporations do have the right to take it off of their platform if they think it's bad for for their optics, and also if they think it's direct disinformation.
ideas, and not just ideas you agree with. Sometimes those ideas are going to be immoral and abhorrent and despicable to you, but that's what a free society is about. So I agree with that. Also, I watched Tulsi Gabbard, and she has been having to partner with Republicans on issues such as
Ballot harvesting. If you're talking about election security, ballot harvesting is the last issue you should be worried about. Why does Tulsi decide to stand up for that issue and not any other voter suppression tactics that came up this election? Why does she have to band with Republicans on that one issue? Ballot harvesting, if that was completely cracked down upon, would disproportionately hurt poor people and communities of color, and it would make it harder for people to be certified to pick up ballots from places like nursing homes.
freeing Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. I mean, Mike, why
Okay.
is that
Is that election security? Did she skip it? What?
and abhorrent and despicable to you? But that's what a free society is about. So I agree with that. Also, I watched Tulsi Gabbard, and she has been having to partner with Republicans on issues such as freeing Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. I mean, Mike, why is that something from Republican side of the aisle that shouldn't be, but it is? Same thing with securing our
What Republicans are speaking out for Snowden and Assange? Are there any regular, like, mainstream Republicans? Anybody who holds positions of power calling for that who are Republicans?
elections. Now it's the Republicans calling for election security, and Democrats are scoffing at it. I don't understand this team
Election
sport
security? Oh, yeah, okay. Kim Iverson is 100% for what Trump is doing right now, trying to delegitimize the election as well, by the way.
mentality.
I
That's
forgot
what I'm
about that.
against. So, somebody actually laid this out really well for me, and they said that
Useful
the issue
idiot.
is that there are progressive Democrats and there are progressive populists, and I fall in the progressive populist camp. So that populism means that there are conservative populists that I agree with more than Democrats, establishment Democrats. So progressive Democrats.
Show me clear issues on where you agree with these right-wing populists on both the problem and the solution. I don't care if you only agree on the problem. That does not help us at all. if they don't agree on the solution. I don't give a shit about populism in general. Populism literally just means appealing to the normal people in a society, appealing to the plebs, appealing to the people who feel forgotten. That's all populism means. It doesn't mean a good or bad thing. It's a tactic in politics.
They would find themselves agreeing a lot with establishment Democrat folks more than they would any conservative, because they don't have that anything they don't have anything in common with them. Whereas as a progressive populist, I would have some things in common with a conservative populist. So
yeah, you both say corporations are bad, and you say corporations are bad, or I might say corporations are bad because they kill every small business. They use propaganda to control the population. They don't allow for class solidarity at the lower levels. But a Republican will say corporations are bad because of, I guess, censorship and because of identity politics. That's what Tim Pool says. That's what Ben Shapiro says. They say, oh, they're trying to feminize Western culture. Or they say, oh, they're using identity politics and supporting Black Lives Matter. They say, oh, you have corporations on your side. Corporations are actually on the left side. It doesn't matter if you agree on the problems. It matters if you agree on the solutions.
Oh, yes, there are times that I take on, I guess, right-wing talking points if those right-wing talking points are conservative populist talking points.
Okay, if there's a Democrat who says there's nothing wrong with the current system versus a fascist who says corporations are evil, I would not agree with that fascist over the corporate Democrat just because they are saying corporations are evil and I say corporations are amoral, are bad in many senses in the way they act. That doesn't matter when it happens, when it comes down to how they act within the political process.
Then I am going to agree with them naturally more than Democrats.
That's how you become a useful idiot. You help the far right gain power because you are incapable of working with neoliberals.
I don't agree with any of those people.
Study music online.
That's what happened to the KDP in Germany. 1928, I think it was.
So, we watch this kind of shift happen with the progressives. We've seen them move from having a common, we all kind of agreed on a set number of goals, and that changed as soon as Joe Biden got the nomination and he wasn't for any of those goals. I mean, think about that. Joe Biden, what was a progressive for? Getting money out of politics. Joe Biden took 5 times more money from Wall Street than Donald Trump, right? The second thing that progressives are for, Medicare for all. Joe Biden has specifically said he's not for that. Now, what progressives say is, yeah, but he'll get us a little closer to it than, let's say, the Republicans. That's maybe true or maybe not. I don't know. They're all bought off, so it's hard to say, right? The third thing, ending wars, that's not coming from the Democrats anymore. I mean, that's coming more from Tucker Carlson.
Yes. I told you 100%. She would vote for Tucker Carlson over Joe Biden because Tucker is a populist. She 100% would. She would definitely vote for all these fascist leaders throughout history because they will say corporations are evil. I mean, they might be saying the corporations are evil because of the Jewish question, but she still is like, wow, we both think corporations are evil. You're on my side. I agree with some right-wing talking points. Definition of a useful idiot.
Not Rachel Maddow. If you want to talk about your dear leaders on network television, you've got Tucker Carlson on the right and you've got Rachel Maddow on the left, who's calling for Russiagate. And, it's the Russians. We got to keep our eyes on the Russians. And meanwhile,
like I always say, Russiagate, no matter what you say, you could say Democrats over propagandize it, but it does happen. Foreign countries interfere with foreign elections. The U.S. does that. Cuba did that. Communist Cuba did that. Countries of the EU do that. It happens. Sorry.
Well, who's the other side saying, we got to end these wars and bring the troops home?
Yes, Tucker versus Rachel Maddow. I would rather fascism over Rachel Maddow. I would rather Tucker Carlson be president over Rachel Maddow to own the libs because she will not say corporations are bad. Tucker will. Tucker will end the wars.
To me, but you know what? It's not coming from the Democrats. So the issues that many of us care about, that we prioritize as what we said we wanted as progressives. Now, there are some other things, raising the minimum wage, that does come from the Democratic side of the aisle, and I agree with that. The people that say, oh, that's going to raise prices and businesses they're not going to be able to pay employees. Guys, that was the same argument that slave owners made. Well, we can't pay these people. The price of goods are going to go up and economies are going to collapse. It didn't happen.
She talks like she just opened up a box of random political opinions and just grabbed a couple out of them and made her own little political subsection. She doesn't have many coherent points that she's hitting.
It won't happen. Just pay people so that they can live the American dream. Pay people so they don't have to be on welfare because you don't want them on welfare. Pay them. Pay them for their job. Pay them for what society requires for us to live decent lives, not lives that are lives of luxury, but just decent lives. So, yes, there are a lot of things I
She
agree
really is a populist. Anything that even remotely sounds populist, she will latch onto. That's the game. That's not good. That is what helps, like I'm saying, fascism. It's, yeah,
on that side.
politics
And then
buffet.
it turns out there's a lot of things I agree with on the other side as well. So I would say at the end of the day now, look, the progressive movement has kind of shifted. Therefore, really radical ideas, fellow progressives that I'm friends with, that I admire and I look up to in a lot of ways, they shifted on me and kind of became really, really radical. And so at the end of the
Radical
day, I
in
think
what
that
ways?
it's safer to say I'm an independent populist, I suppose. And everybody should be.
So she's not a
Everybody should be
progressive?
that, quite frankly. Everybody should be independent. You should be independent. Make your own choices. Don't.
The phrasing, okay, the word independent when talking about political association doesn't literally mean like go be an independent woman. It doesn't literally mean that. It just means you don't align. Okay, never
Rely
mind.
on the party to tell you what to think. Think for yourself. And you don't have to vote on all the same things that the party votes on and agree with everything that they say. They make these long, enormous lists, and there's no way you could agree with all of those things. So take a step back and maybe not make a political party your identity or a label your identity. And
She
just say,
made
"Look,
populism her identity. She will agree with anything that says populism in front of it, no matter how bad the repercussions are. Tucker Carlson, 2024. If she doesn't support Tucker Carlson in 2024, I will make a video about this video, disproving myself.
independent and be a populist. That means you're for the people. That you think
No,
is
it doesn't.
elite.
Just because you're a populist doesn't mean you are for the people. It's a political strategy to win people over at the bottom. It literally doesn't mean anything about how you actually practice in politics. It literally doesn't mean that.
Are running off with our money. Now, not everybody's going to be a populist, especially if you are an elite. Some elites are. I know them. And they are actually populist.
Who do you
even
know?
though they happen
What
to make a
elites
bunch
do you
of money.
know?
But a lot of elites are, they want to continue the wealth heist. They want to continue the status quo. And they're not about wanting to change
You
our
think
political
Tucker Carlson doesn't want to continue the status freaking quo? Just because he says a couple populist things doesn't mean he's on your freaking side.
system. They've been able to grease the wheels of the politicians, giving them money, and they don't want to stop. They don't want to stop. And that is what the rest of us need to work against. So, I guess some people would say it depends on the topic, of course, the talking points that I might have picked up. I am for the average person. And I am for
That's not how that
helping
works.
that average person achieve an American dream that was sold to us as children that is increasingly impossible to have. Now, we might not agree on exactly how to get there. Myself
Virtue
and let's say a
signaling so
conservative
hard right now.
populist might not agree exactly on how we're going to achieve these
You
things.
don't agree on any
but
solutions.
At the end of the day, we want to achieve them. We have that common goal. And
We
I
want to
don't-
achieve them? Achieve what? You just said you don't agree on the solutions. You don't achieve problems. You don't achieve identifying problems. You achieve finding solutions to those problems. This is so aggravating because I know she is the type of person, as a progressive, to lead people to a point of being unviable in the political process. Or is it inviable? Just not being able to operate in real politics because they're obsessed with this idea of, populism is the only doctrine. This populist label is all that matters. It doesn't matter if Tucker's saying corporations are bad or Bernie Sanders is saying corporations is bad. If Tucker and Bernie are both saying corporations are bad, they are both equally viable in her mind as a populist or as populists. But it doesn't work that way, and we all know that.
care which side of the aisle the change comes from. If the Republican Party suddenly transforms, because they have no idea who they are anymore, and there is a chance that the Republican Party shifts and changes and morphs and becomes
Into
the
what?
old progressive Republican Party of Teddy Roosevelt.
What?
Except hopefully with less war.
What?
Because they'll have
Union? What? Trust busting? You think the Republican Party is going to break up corporations? Does she understand that when Teddy Roosevelt was a Republican, that was before the two parties flipped? Oh, never mind. I don't think she
the
does.
most popular news channel in America, Tucker Carlson, saying, let's not go to war. That might happen. There is a chance. And if it does, guys, I'm all there for it. I don't care. I don't play team sports. I'm not red or blue. I am red, white, and blue. And you should be too. You like that, Dr. Seuss rhyme?
Casper,
oh,
everything
funny.
we do.
That's so funny. Wow. Cool. That was awesome. Tell you what. What does she say on her community? Oh, never mind. What are your go-to news sources? She only has one post. Her brain gave out at the end. Increasing calls for censorship from Democrats. Wall Street to shape the Biden. Okay, let's play a game. So this is the top right here. Let's go until we find something critical of Republicans or anyone on the right. Okay. Let's see. Big Pharma. Okay, we just watched that one. Did Trump really look to strike Iran? Okay, defending Trump. Will Trump bring troops home and end the wars? I watched this already. This is defending Trump. Don't politicize climate action. That's criticizing the left. Kanye, for some reason, being an independent in a polarized whatever. Can the Senate flip blue? California unveils ridiculous Thanksgiving gathering rules. Why excess death numbers are misleading, trying to disprove COVID deaths? Okay. COVID's actually not that bad. Kamala Harris is bad. Tulsi versus AOC brawl. Okay, this might be a fun one. Oh, wait.
So AOC went after Tulsi Gabbard on social media, and a lot of people are wondering what this beef is about, and they're not really fully understanding it, so I'm going to do my best to explain the Tulsi Gabbard versus AOC brawl. So the timeline, we're going to go through the timeline of what transpired so that we can fully understand what's going on, and this has to do with ballot harvesting and Tulsi's campaign to try and stop ballot harvesting from happening. So September 18th, Tulsi introduces anti-ballot harvesting legislation.
Oh, never mind. This is when frickin' Tulsi went on PragerU. How Trump will use surviving COVID to win re-election, so nothing critical of the right at all. Right? Okay, Kim reacts to Kimberly Guilfoyle's RNC speech after this ad.
Create.
All right.
By the way, I just want to mention that Kimberly Guilfoyle's speech. Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, leaders and fighters for freedom and liberty and the American dream, the best is yet to come.
You know, I was watching that, and I think like most of us that watched it just sat there going like,
Is this
like, stop,
does this count as critical to the right?
What are you doing? Why are you doing this to me?
Does this count?
I don't understand. I mean, it was really something to watch. I think that most of the conventions are going to be forgotten about like usual, but I don't know if her speech is ever going to be forgotten. I think that one is going to be one for the books.
I never even heard about
it.
it.
Go and find this, but somebody on Twitter actually put her speech to North Korea propaganda music.
You for granted. Don't let them step on you. Don't let them destroy your families, your lives, and your future. Don't let them kill future generations because they told you and brainwashed you and fed you lies that you weren't
This
good
is a
enough.
straight Nazi speech, by the way. It's probably copy and paste. But, you know, judging by what Kim has said so far, I think she would vote for it. Like, vote for this speech.
Lives.
And when you put that to the background of her speech, it actually sounds perfect. I mean, over that music, it is okay. I get it now, and now I don't feel so accosted by the speech, and it's just hilarious once you stick it to music. When I watched it, I felt like this is half speech, half song. That's how she sounds when she's yelling at us like this, with this tone of, you know, America is burning to the ground.
Okay. Okay. All right, here's a cool video. Antifa and BLM attack conservatives. Wait, I saw this guy. He's the guy that was harassing BLM supporters, right? This guy right here. I saw him on Twitter. This guy. He was harassing BLM supporters and then walked away when he realized he would get beat up. By the way, I mean, this is really an echo chamber type of deal here. But did you see all the Trump supporters going crazy in DC at the Million MAGA March? And did you see the sign that said, "We are coming for blacks and Indians. Here comes the New World Order"? No, he was threatening people. He was threatening to beat up people until he realized he was outnumbered. I don't agree with violence, of course, in any way, but if that is the situation, it's a little bit different than how they're presenting it here. And we have to stop as a society taking 5-second clips from freaking crazy situations and making huge freaking proclamations based off of those clips. Clickbait culture. Clickbait culture is terrible. Yeah, he was trying to hit a bunch of people. He was just too slow and old to do it. If you're aiming a gun at somebody and you shoot the gun, you pull the trigger thinking it's loaded and the gun isn't loaded, you still meant to shoot them. So he was trying to hit people. He was simply unsuccessful. So do with that as you will when it comes to the moral standards of starting a fight and hitting an old guy.
Tolerance. It's a word we hear a lot these days, so let's define it. Tolerance is the ability to live with
They
people
bring out
whose
Dave Rubin to talk about tolerance
opinions and behavior you don't agree with.
and how to talk with people who you don't agree with. Civility politics. They use identity politics so much on PragerU.
That's essentially how Oxford defines it, how Merriam-Webster defines it, and how we as a society have always defined it. You might be for the death penalty and your cousin might be against it. You might be against the
That's a big difference. That's a big... Oh my god.
$15 minimum wage and your coworker might be for it. Your dad might have voted for Trump, your mom...
Wait, did he just say, as a fast food worker, you might be against the $15 minimum wage? You might be against the raise, but you're... Okay.
...worker might be for it. Your dad might have voted for Trump, your mom might have voted for Clinton, and your brother may not have voted at all.
Okay, if you have parents who voted different directions, then I feel bad for you because I feel like your home life is a little bit lacking. Because, I mean, I don't understand people who would be able to do that. That's such a drastic difference. Like, holy crap.
Whatever differences we have, tolerating others' opinions is a prerequisite to a functioning and free society.
Yeah, when someone goes through the street holding a sign that says, "Welcome to the New World Order, blacks and Indians better run," include the Jews in there, and they say they're going to beat up a bunch of little Black Lives Matter protesting kids, that's, you know, practice tolerance.
America itself was built on a foundation of tolerance. The Declaration of Independence guarantees us life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But there's an implicit contract there. To have your life, your liberty, and your pursuit of happiness, you have to be tolerant of somebody else's life, their liberty, and their pursuit of happiness.
Yeah, coming from the same people who just flipped out over Harry Styles wearing a freaking dress.
This contract, though, seems to be breaking down. If you listen to the mainstream media, only one side is living up to this deal, the left. The right, according to the media, is intolerant of everyone.
The right has their own media. Fox News, before they got bombed by Donald Trump, was the biggest and highest rated media channel in American history.
Those darned white heterosexual Christian males. There's only one problem. It's just not true.
The white Christian males are under attack in our country. Western civilization is changing. Reclaim your nation. Literally, we're like, you see how this is like a couple steps away from, you know, full Nazi stuff, like full nationalism?
Incredibly, the left isn't even tolerant of the very people they say they're tolerant of. If you're gay or black or an immigrant and you're not in lockstep with current leftist orthodoxy, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Leftist orthodoxy doesn't use identity politics. They use more class-based and more actual, like, race-based issues. They don't use identity for everything. No actual person on the left likes Kamala Harris just because she is Asian American, African American, and a woman. No one is saying that.
If you believe we should judge people on the content of their character and not the color of their skin...
And they use MLK on the frickin' PragerU videos all the frickin' time.
The left calls you racist. If you believe that America is a nation of immigrants, but that our country should also protect its borders, the left calls you a xenophobe.
Literally, people on the left, the main argument I hear is to make sure the border is secured, and to also say every person who is currently in our country gets direct citizenship, because that is the best plan from a human perspective and economically. Republicans are not pro-immigrant. Why would Trump end DACA? Why would Trump, you know, try to ruin the lives of dreamers?
If you believe that men and women are equal but fundamentally different, the left calls you sexist. Here's the thing. Those who only tolerate people they agree with or like aren't actually tolerant. So who is tolerant? Is it the organizers of the Women's March who had to apologize
Yeah,
for
if you're trying to...
the hurt and confusion they caused when they invited a man, leftist icon Bernie Sanders, to speak at their convention? Is it the Antifa thugs
When
who
did that happen?
caused UC Berkeley to spend $600,000 on security when mainstream conservative Ben Shapiro showed up to give a talk? Or is it Democratic
that was stupid,
Congresswoman
obviously.
Maxine Waters who scolded Kanye West for talking out of turn when he dared suggest that blacks should think for themselves? These aren't isolated examples. I'm guessing that
Yeah, that's
you,
all Kanye said.
person
Kanye said nothing other. Like, I don't know if you guys knew that. Kanye literally just said black people should think for themselves. That's all he said.
watching this right now
just left after
have
that.
silenced yourself because you don't want to suffer the wrath of the outrage mob. So let me ask the question again. Who is tolerant? Well, here's the surprise. It's actually those scary right-wingers that the media and the universities demonize every day. I speak from personal experience. Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment here, but I still consider myself a liberal. And it's my
Yes,
duty
Dave Rubin is still a liberal. Yes.
as a liberal to say what I think. I would rather stand for what I believe and be hated than bow down and be loved. The left, sadly, has become utterly intolerant of anyone with whom they disagree. Why? Because they believe that they know how you should live and how you should...
The left isn't tolerant of people who aren't tolerant. If you say gay people are not valid, which a lot of Dave Rubin's friends say, Ben Shapiro said he wouldn't go to Dave Rubin's wedding. People on the left wouldn't like Ben Shapiro for that. If you say trans people aren't real, people on the left won't like you for that. If you say racism isn't real, people on the left won't like you for that. And showing a burning car we know is bullshit.
think. Any deviation, any non...
The left is burning down all the cities. When in reality, like 10 kids decided to go rioting and taking, and take advantage of a civil rights protest and like a police shooting or something.
Conformity is dangerous to that goal. Believe it or not, the right these days actually welcomes diversity of thought. I can tell you that in the last few years of my political evolution, I've consistently found conservatives to be tolerant and open-minded.
Dave Rubin is like a Pokemon, dude. His political revolution. Conservatives are open-minded. Very open-minded, being anti-gay, anti-trans, saying racism isn't real, anti-getting money out of politics.
Don't take my word for it, though. Test it out for yourself.
Yes,
Go
you're right.
talk
I am intolerant for not tolerating intolerance. I'm sorry.
to some. They do exist, and they do things like watch movies, travel, and eat ethnic food. Regular people things. You know what I
Conservatives
found
are
out?
people too.
The right, much more than the left, believes in the notion of live and let live. And that,
Live,
ladies
laugh,
and
love.
gentlemen, is the true definition of tolerance. I'm Dave Rubin of The Rubin Report for Prager University.
Literally, they're against gay people getting married. They were beaten to submission on that issue. Even Democrats were not for gay people getting married. They're still not for gay people being able to adopt. They're still not for trans people being able to serve in the military. They were just against gay people serving in the military. Live and let live. They're so freaking authoritarian. If a guy wears a dress, they freak out. Ben Shapiro, like the video I posted yesterday, freaks out over that issue. But when it comes to real issues like COVID and stuff, they don't give a shit. They say racism simply isn't real. Live and let live? Okay. And they say they're against big corporations, but they constantly simp for big money and don't want to get big money out of politics. Amazing. All these internal contradictions. God, dude. Matthew McConaughey. Hoo hoo hoo. Yeah, so that's fun. Where is this one thing at? Hey, want to see a funny joke? Okay, I have a real funny joke for y'all. It's right here. Hakeem Jeffries.
Fight for the people. To make life better.
Never mind, this is so quiet.
Working families,
You can't even hear it.
middle-class folks, senior citizens, young people, veterans.
This guy, he said, Nancy Pelosi is a voice for the voiceless, a defender of the disenfranchised, a legendary legislator, a notorious negotiator, and a powerful, profound, prophetic, principled public servant. A lot of P's right there.
All right, Sagar, what's on your radar?
Well, the most important debate that should be happening in our country right now is not happening. It's not a surprise to me, but it's one of the profound injustices that comes at a real turning point in our country. I'm not talking about Trump. I'm not talking about Joe Biden. I'm talking, as usual, a bipartisan failure of the highest order that has put a gun to the head of American citizens that guarantees they will take a bullet either way and which will take many decades to recover from. From nearly the day that this pandemic began, a debate has raged in this country about government-mandated restrictions. Should the government be able to close businesses and tell people to stay home? At what point can we sacrifice liberty? And how do we as a society balance the certainty of people getting sick with resulting economic shutdowns? Now, I can't answer any of the questions about civil liberties, but
I'm just seeing the definition of cuties. I don't know.
Can't answer the latter.
What you mean.
If you accept that lockdowns and restrictions on businesses must be a part of life and mandated by the government, then you have no choice but to remunerate those businesses for staying closed and remunerate the workers who lost income as a result of this closure. It's the most obvious solution in the world. And yet, what did Congress do? Well, in March, they passed the CARES Act, which beefed up the unemployment system, and it passed some aid to the Paycheck Protection Program for small businesses.
Wait, am I getting something wrong here? Did Sagar advocate to nationalize workers' wages and to keep businesses afloat during the economic crisis we faced? I heard him say nothing about that, but he's saying, like, there's an obvious solution.
For a time. It even dropped poverty for many workers. But we know now the devastating results. Many millions of people are now permanently unemployed because the aid we extended to businesses ran out and they ended up failing. And worse, Washington decided not to renew the unemployment benefits that expired many months ago, meaning that we got the worst of all worlds. We locked down, then we didn't have bailout businesses, then we let aid to workers expire, and it's not like they have another job to go back to, do they? We now have an environment
We should have
where people
furloughed
look
the workers.
suspiciously at any calls for lockdown because they know they're essentially being left out in the cold. How did this madness happen? Well, it happened because bad faith actors in the Republican Party, and libertarians especially, never wanted to lock down or have social distancing. So they lobbied as hard as they could against any additional stimulus in unemployment insurance. Then, whenever President Trump woke up near the end of 2020 campaign, realized we desperately indeed did need stimulus, Nancy Pelosi decided to hold up his attempts because she didn't want to make sure he won re-election. Their partisanship, incompetence, and idiocy has now placed us where we are today, in an even worse situation. Because as I sit here, coronavirus cases across the interior of the country are exploding with 166,581 cases yesterday and 796.
So Sagar is actually good on this. He's actually effectively hitting on both sides.
6 deaths. Mayors, governors, and local officials now face a terrible choice. Many officials are going the route of putting in stricter measures. California has once again restricted indoor dining. Major American cities, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Chicago, states like New Mexico, Washington, Iowa. I expect only to see this list of places grow, and it makes me so angry. Why? Because I know with relative certainty this decision guarantees the death of tens of thousands of small businesses which managed to hang on to this point. In effect, every governor and mayor across the country now has to decide whether they risk letting the virus ravage their cities or choose the death of their businesses. It never had to be this way. They could have passed more stimulus several times over. They could have at least put politics aside for a brief moment in the lead up to the election and passed at least some stimulus for small businesses. But they didn't. And you could say, yeah, Sagar, but maybe they'll wake up and face the facts. I wish I shared your optimism. And just to pour cold water on it, here's a quote from Senator Richard Shelby yesterday, who would literally write such a bill if it were to exist on whether COVID-19 will end up passing soon. Quote, I think right now Democrats would have to come a long way back to reality with us to get a bill.
Product research is
Yeah, Republicans won't pass it. Republicans wanted a bill that did not protect workers from getting COVID. If they got COVID, their businesses, their corporations, the people who hire them would not be liable.
There you go.
At all.
Nothing has changed. And per Politico's Jake Sherman yesterday, there has not been a single discussion on Capitol Hill about COVID relief since they got back. For all intents and purposes, it is likely dead. It's a crime, and it's now the reality that we face. That reality is a barren landscape and arguably one of the worst economic winters for this country since 1932. And honestly, I hate myself for it, but I've got to sit here and argue at this point that this set of political conditions, I do not think it is tenable for this country to have widespread lockdown once again. I think on the merits, it is and always has been the correct thing to do in the scientific abstract. But in an environment where Nancy Pelosi won't budge on stimulus, where Mitch McConnell is not passing anything through the Senate, and
that's a little bit disingenuous. Nancy Pelosi's bill was a problem because it was too big. They started at 3.4 trillion and they dropped down to 2.2 trillion. The White House had a plan for 1.8 trillion, but Mitch McConnell wouldn't budge from 1.2 trillion. And the 1.2 trillion included no stimulus and no worker protection. So Nancy's bill in that situation was much better than Mitch McConnell's. The fault is 100% on Mitch in that situation.
Trump is largely uninterested in governing, then this is an operational environment which we must make decisions. You either have to accept more restrictions or choose mass unemployment. And at this point, several months into the pandemic, we already know a few things. As of last month, 100,000 restaurants have closed.
This is happening in France too, even with their furlough program, which is much better than what the U.S. is doing. Businesses like restaurants are being hurt much more. They're having to spend a lot of money to keep markets alive and to keep small communities alive, but they're actually doing it. In America, they refuse to help small businesses. They will never do that. I mean, a lot of people probably consider that socialism, but it's what they should be doing. They should be nationalizing wages and keeping businesses alive. It's simply the right the right thing to do. And Sagar isn't completely wrong. During these new lockdowns that are happening, this economy isn't ready for it. This government has failed its people and has done nothing to protect it, protect businesses, to protect workers from financial collapse, from bankruptcy. It's terrible. It's a terrible situation now. And our government isn't going to do anything about it.
Due to coronavirus. Roughly works out to 1
But
in 6.
Thank God Nancy Pelosi is still going to be leader of the House. Thank God, Democrats are keeping the same leadership. And thank God Mitch McConnell is still going to be reelected and be the leader of the Republicans.
We already expected some more of these to close as outdoor dining wanes across the East Coast. But with new restrictions on indoor dining in many of these places that are already cold, that's it. It's pretty much over. That means more permanent job loss, and worse, it means even more places that will die, which the underemployed and those in the service industry will not be able to return to after we have a widespread vaccine. Furthermore, socially, at this point, there is no trust. Americans did their patriotic duty. They stayed home, and their government was supposed to save them. But they didn't. Essentially, they paid them off for a little while, but mostly left them to rot. And it looks like, once again, we may enter that scenario. And I have no choice but to at least say here that I think it's crazy after several months in which citizens have been abandoned to expect them to coop themselves up once again with no pay. It never should have been this way.
Yeah, but now, I mean, people are getting scared. People are getting confused on why everyone has COVID. It's finally hitting the rural areas, and these rural areas are not ready to deal with it.
It's one of the worst government failures since Herbert Hoover's response to the Great Depression in 1932. And it's bipartisan, and it's one that will take us decades to recover from by accelerating the class divide that already separates Americans today. And I wish I could tell you the right way to direct your anger, but I can't, because it's just going to be a bad one.
This is how you order all this delivery.
I think Sagar means well. I just think his ideas are pretty dangerous most of the time. He's a Tucker Carlson Republican. It's,
And the way I look at it, Crystal, is that it is just a complete holistic failure of government across all levels. And like I said, I don't want to sit here and argue, but these are the conditions that we face. Pelosi's not going to change anything. She sent Mitch McConnell a letter late yesterday being like, let's negotiate or something. McConnell's position is $500 billion. They won't pass that. And by the way, that $500 billion doesn't include stimulus checks. So there you go, right? In terms of what's coming to you, and it doesn't increase unemployment.
I couldn't
either.
find
So
any weird
in terms
definitions,
of, to the average
personally.
person, not going to do anything. Yep. Yeah, I mean, look, $500 billion in aid to businesses, I'm all for it, but it's not nearly enough. And the way I think about it, 100,000 small businesses already closed. That's 1 in 6. If they close indoor dining, like Philadelphia closed indoor dining, the average temperature in Philly right now is like 40-something degrees. What are you going to do? Go out and see? I went walking around in my neighborhood yesterday. There's a lot of restaurants that have outdoor seating. Even with the heat lamps, it's like 3 people out there.
Yeah.
How long are these people going to survive?
Yeah.
I know. I mean,
God, imagine thinking that's the solution. Having a bunch of small businesses get freaking heat lamps to have people eat outside. It's insane. Too bad people's anger is directed in all the wrong directions, though. It's directed on Donald Trump and not, it's not on good populism. It's on bad populism. People are going to get mad and blame immigrants, are going to blame black and brown people. They're going to blame everybody but who's causing the actual problems. And, if we had more class solidarity, maybe politics would change a little bit.
Reason why at the very beginning of this, with the very first stimulus, why people like you and I had our hair on fire about you have to do this in a way that continues throughout the length of the pandemic. Yeah. You have to just backstop people's payroll so that none of this was necessary. You have to protect people so that they will and they can stay home because people got to go out and do what they got to do to feed their kids. That's just the reality of the situation. And we said from the very beginning that a lot of people want to create this false choice where it's either you lose your health or put your health at risk, or you lose your livelihood.
Which is now where we are.
And that is exactly where we are. Yeah. And it did not have to be that way. I mean, you wonder why we were running around with our hair on fire again when you had a glimmer of a possibility of another stimulus before the election, because we knew that would be the last possible chance. That was it. And so now, the government has no authority at this point to tell people what to do because they failed.
It's lawlessness, actually.
They failed in their end of the bargain.
True.
Their end of the bargain was you stay home and protect the public health, and we're going to make sure that you don't get kicked out of your houses, that you can pay your bills, that you can get back to your job when this is all over. That ship has sailed. That is gone and isn't coming back. And you can see there's zero negotiations going on right now in Capitol Hill. Stock market's hitting all-time high. So what do they care? That's the situation that we find ourselves.
But people keep electing the same politicians. I mean, after so long, you elect the same exact people. What can you even say? People obviously don't understand what's happening. Like, poor people don't know they're poor. Working class people don't know they're working class. There's so many working class people voting in Donald Trump's interest and not voting in their own interest. They look down upon people like AOC and look up to people like Trump. They look down upon politicians who were born from the bottom and who worked their way up to get into politics to help people like them, but they look up to politicians who were born on third base and think they hit a triple. So what do you do in that, at that point? If this doesn't teach people politics is screwed, what will? This election wasn't a referendum on anybody. Progressives lost, Democrats lost. Like, what is it?
Ourselves in, and it absolutely outrages me because what's the backdrop? I just was reading this morning, coronavirus cases are going up in every single state in the country right now. Okay, yesterday's numbers is from the New York Times, about 160,000 new cases and more than 1,500 new deaths. The number of deaths is ticking up day after day after day. Like, we're in a horrible situation with the pandemic, and yet I think that the most responsible thing, given the government failures at this point, is say, here's what the public health officials recommend. Yeah. Here's what's safe. And now people have to figure it out for themselves because the government isn't doing anything to protect you and make sure that your livelihood will be there when this is all over. And I'm disgusted by it.
That's the key, right? Which is that it didn't have to be this way. Do you really think there would have been all this social unrest and all that if people had been paid? No, I just do not believe that. Look at Britain and Germany and elsewhere. Are there lockdown protests? Yeah, a little bit. But in general, their payroll is covered. In Germany, same thing. They have a 4% unemployment rate in Germany. Same across much of Europe. Is there social...
Hey, it would be socialism. The answer is literally socializing this stuff.
Consternation of being cooped up? Yes. Is it even close to what we see here in the United States?
Nationalization, I guess you could say.
And that's reason why is purely
socialism is when the government does more.
Economic program. And they're not, essentially it's a free fall. And now it's turned even more into a culture war, right? So you got the blue cities and everybody else who wants to virtue signal, so they're just going to lock down.
What?
And it's like, okay, well, you're basically murdering your entire small business stock at this point. When you kill indoor dining,
true though.
Let's say that this spike, so quote unquote, lasts for 2 months. That's it. It's dead. I mean, many of these businesses were already operating on a 40% capacity.
Hey, you know what? Screw Democrats. Gavin Newsom, the pictures of him came out inside the frickin' having dinner indoors after he's imposing these restrictions on his people, not leading by example. These Democrats don't give a shit. Andrew Cuomo in frickin' New York, these Democrats are frickin' assholes. Holy shit. How do they keep getting reelected by these frickin' sycophants that don't know anything about politics? They really do love all the virtue signaling because they sure as hell aren't voting on frickin' material issues. Like, come on, dude. I can't blame people for hating Democrats. How am I supposed to get people to vote Democrat when Democrats don't give a shit about actual people? It's so dumb.
Most restaurants in the country can barely operate at 100% capacity.
Yeah.
So then 100,000 already failed.
Even before COVID, because all the freaking branch stores are killing all the freaking small businesses. And this situation is exactly what leads to Kim Iverson, populism in general. And when you don't have populists on the left taking over, you have populists on the right taking over. Because right-wing populism works a lot better in systems like ours because it doesn't endanger any existing power structures. So, if people wanted Bernie Sanders as populism, it threatens the ruling class. But fascism is always accepted by the ruling class because fascism works well with capitalism. This is actually what happened when Benito Mussolini rose to power. So, Benito Mussolini in Italy was a communist at first. He was at first a communist, and then the leaders of that society kind of pushed him to another role of populism where he became a fascist, and he wrote the doctrine of fascism. Because, I mean, they accept fascism because they can keep on making their money and all that. Whatever. Alright, I'm gonna go play video games and go to bed. I hope everyone has a good night. Don't get COVID. Wear your mask. Get good sleep and drink a lot of orange juice and apple juice and water to get more vitamin D and vitamin C and all that good stuff, you know. Eat some plants, some veggies.